Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the live today. Little bit of a different setup today. I thought I'd get back into my studio. I've had a studio here for 6 years and I've done lives most of the time by my desk. So I thought I'd dig out, brush off the cobwebs, come out in here and share with you today about how do we build that helps us build our business. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. I got my whiteboard. So we're going to scribble around. I have got a few slides that I'll share as we get going, maybe. But I wanted to really help you today think about social selling, not really as just this thing you do on LinkedIn, but think about it bigger as part of your process to actually build business pipeline. If you're a salesperson, you are measured by the number of deals you close and how big your pipeline is. If you're a business owner, you will be measured by, and your business success will be measured by how many consistent sales you make. So pipeline is pretty important. And often people will talk to me and say, Dean, I don't need a lot of clients. Doesn't matter how many clients you need a pipeline that makes that predictable. And so if you don't have a pipeline, you will be feast and famine and you will be scrambling around like a crazy person. And we want to avoid that. I'll tell you a little bit of a story about my journey in a minute about that. But if you're joining me, you've never been to one of these before. I don't have a QVC countdown clock to give you. I'm Dean Seddon. I'm the founder of Maverick, and I've helped hundreds, thousands, God knows how many people build their business and leverage social selling, whether that be a sales team in a large bank or a solopreneur building their own business. So that's what we're all about today. How do we build business? Now, I said I'd share the story with you because I think this is helpful for other people to understand. And whether you're a salesperson, marketer, or business owner, you'll get this. I left a job. This is a long time ago now. I left a job to start my own business. And I was really, really good as a marketer and salesperson. And you would think marketer and salesperson would be genius at this. And I got it wrong. My first business selling printing and design actually failed because I didn't build a big enough pipeline. And so I ran out of clients, then I ran out of money, and then I ran back home to my parents and moved in my old bedroom. And I had to go get a job. And fundamentally, it was down to a couple of things. One, positioning, but we're not going to talk about that today. But the second part of that is pipeline. I did not have a big enough pipeline to support me. And so I ran out of clients, ran out of money. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And on your screen here, you'll see a little diagram. And I put it on the screen to leave it here because as we do the whiteboard stuff, and as I unpack this, you'll want to remember what I'm sharing with you on the screen. So the first thing we have to understand is, why did I call it $1 million pipeline? Well, dollars, because I got a lot of people from the US on here. I could have called it a £750,000 pipeline, but then some people wouldn't get the currency conversion. So I thought $1 million pipeline also has a great to it. But why that big? Well, that isn't that big when you think about it. If you have a pipeline of $1 million of business, so if you go $1 million of business there, right? Now, depending on how long your sales cycle is, that $1 million doesn't go very far because most people's pipeline is not all guaranteed. It's very rare you would have, that $1 million, it's all solid, it's all guaranteed. So there's a percentage of it that will fall away. So percentage that would fall away. So that makes sense, right? Oh, actually, a senior team of finance departments put a blocker on spending, so we can't do it. Or, oh, actually, we're going to go with somebody else. Or, oh, it was just speculative. So a percentage of it would fall away. And in large organizations, one of the biggest frustrations of sales leaders is not knowing how hard or soft the pipeline is, how much of it is actually real, bankable. Then you've got a percentage of it that will convert like 0 to 30 days. You've got a percentage that's 30 to 90 days. And then you've got a percentage of it that's 90 days plus. So when you start to think about this and start to do the maths, $1 million might not go very far because a pipeline has to feed you for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, however long. And so the reason why we build this is, yes, you might need clients right now. You might go, actually, I've got a hole right in front of me. I need to fill it, feast and famine. If you've got a hole right in front of you, that's because your pipeline was not big enough previously. So you should always have people in your funnel because some fall away, some will convert immediately, some will take a little longer, and some will take what feels like forever. That's just the nature of business. It's the nature of sales. It's the nature of marketing. And so I take a more holistic approach to this and go, okay, if I've got to have deals coming out one end, I've got to have leads and conversations coming in the other. So if I just clean my board again, right, and I'm laying this out, I might be telling you to suck eggs for a moment. I'm sorry, I'm turning my back to you whilst I'm doing this, right? But if I've got clients coming out this end, so I've got clients here, right? I've got to capture leads here. And there's various different stages they've got to go through. This is common sense. You all know this, but you may know this, but are you doing it? And so what I've done is I've simplified this pipeline process for a LinkedIn world, and it's on the screen as a diagram. And I'm going to talk about how this works in practicality on LinkedIn. Now, with each of these 4 stages that I've got on screen, so first one, build a network of buyers. Second one, capture interest and intent. We got some things to look at there. Convert that interest into calls, and then convert those calls into clients. You've got to be doing this cycle all the time, over and over and over again. So this has to form daily routines, discipline. You got to get, if you want predictable pipeline, if you want peace of mind, if you want revenue that comes in, no stress, no worry about where the next clients come from, no worry about a pip because your manager's worried about your sales target. You don't want extra scrutiny from your sales team or your manager, or you don't want the pressure of payroll, whatever your situation is, whether you're a business owner, salesperson, whoever. You've got to be doing things and have some self-discipline to just keep doing it. Now, I'll give you an example of this. When I started my first business that I had to get closed down, ran up so much debt because I had this belief in the idea, but my pipeline wasn't big enough. So I ran out of clients, ran out of money. When that happened to me, yeah, and I made that mistake. That was the pipeline problem. I wasn't doing all of these things in a way that was bringing stuff in at the front end. I was so focused on trying to get clients out, I wasn't bringing people in at this end. So you have to run a process, and my process was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And I meet lots of people who, and I'll give you a real good example of this in my own first business. I did have some clients, and some of them were really good clients, really, really good. Worked with some big names, but it just wasn't stable enough. But when those big clients came in, when those big opportunities converted, and some of them were big, I would get so into the weeds of those new clients, those projects, that I would neglect doing this stuff. And I've seen people do this in their own business too. And I know what's going to happen, because when you stop doing this because you're busy, you basically are building up a secret hole, a hole that is covered by your current busyness. So what happens is, and I've done this, I've seen clients do it, I've seen companies do it. They have a record month and they bring up record business. Sales team take their foot off the gas. Business owner takes their foot off the gas because they're busy dealing with that and they're riding a high. And underlying it, a gap opens up somewhere here. Yeah. And then because they don't fill it, that gap moves along the process. So basically that gap, because you don't fill it up, that gap moves along the process, moves along the process, moves along the process till it ends up here. You see my really creative design, illustration. And so then we get to a point, maybe 3 months later, and we go, oh shit, we got a fucking hole. Sorry. Oops. We got a huge hole. What are we going to do? And then the craziness starts. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And so what happens then is we start filling it back up, and eventually it comes back. And then we get super busy because this wave of activity we did here, the craziness we did here, comes down the process, down the process, down the process. And then we get really busy again. And then we get a gap, we get a gap, we get a gap, we get it. It's a cycle. And people talk about feast and famine. That's why feast and famine happens. So in my business, my first business, this happened to me. And don't get me wrong, every business gets those peaks and troughs. Every business gets them. But it happened to me, and it took me out. It took me out. It can happen to a salesperson and get them fired. It can happen to a business that means the business owner has to get a job. So I developed this thing called Always Be Marketing. Always Be Marketing, ABM. Yeah, Always Be Marketing. In other words, even when I don't need leads, I'm capturing leads. So I do these events. About 400 people sign up for these. Some watch it on YouTube, some watch on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever. About 400 people sign up for these per week. Do they all watch it? No. Do I need 400 leads every week? No. Do I need 400 inquiries every week? No. So why do I do it? Because I've learned this lesson and it's painful. Yeah. And in my scenario, when my first business was tanking, I got afraid of opening letters because I knew what they were. Like I could not open letters. Yeah, I was frightened of opening letters because this big gap had gone on for so long. I'd reached a point where I was underwater financially. So I'd never wish that on anybody because it's not very nice, it's unpleasant, and it takes years to recover from it. But I've been through that mill where that then led to money problems and debt problems. So I'm not trying to kind of scare you or anything. I'm just trying to say that's the reality. Businesses go bust because their cash flow, and their profit is tied to the pipeline. Like it's the engine. There's a saying, sales solve all problems. The right sales solve all problems. So I've made the case there. I don't need to labor the point. Let's get into these 4 things that really matter. If you want to build pipeline with social selling is just a way of building pipeline. You could cold call, you could cold email, you could do all sorts of things. But social selling is what I do. I'm passionate about it. I enjoy it. I find it fun. I don't find it stressful. And I don't want to do the icky stuff of ringing complete strangers. The first thing we have to do is, particularly if we're going to do this on LinkedIn, is we need build a network of buyers, right? So what do I mean by buyers, right? You need enough people in your network that will support your pipeline. Remember pipeline, the percentages, not all of it's going to convert immediately. You need enough people in your network to support your pipeline for the next year. This is why I'm a big advocate, not of pitching, not a fan of pitching, of growing your network with your ideal clients consistently, adding people, connecting with people so that they become more familiar. Will you be pitching them all right now? No. Will you need to pitch them or any of them? Not necessarily. So we need to be growing our network with the right people. Why grow your network? Dean, I only need 2 clients. Remember the stats, right? There's a percentage of people who will not convert. There's a percentage of people who will convert quickly, 60 days, 90 days, and then over 3 months. So there's gonna be people in that mix, but also there's the people who don't go into your pipeline, which is the majority. So you go, I only need 2 clients. Well, I'll just connect with 2 people. So you're saying you get a 100% success rate. Yeah, I don't know anybody who gets a 100% success rate in sales and marketing, right? So you've got to have those people in your network, the right people, because some will not be interested right now. Some people will be interested and they'll come into your pipeline. And then of those people who come into your pipeline, they'll be at all different stages. And some will never get anywhere because they'll change their mind or not buy or what have you. So that's why I'm saying you need to grow. Now, how many? Well, LinkedIn allows you to send 100 per week. That's a lot, right? That's a lot. But some of those people will take time to trust you. One of the first things you've got to do is grow your network and let them experience you, get to know you, and build trust. We are in a trust recession right now. AI, fake reviews, fake everything, fake engagement. We are in a trust recession. So growing your network with the right people is not just about, oh, connect, pitch, connect, pitch. It doesn't work. But we do have to have those people in our network because if we don't, it's directly the feeder. Your connections are the feeder for your pipeline. So if you're not there, you're limiting your pipeline from the off. So 100 per week. Now, if you're pretty, um, you're not very active on LinkedIn right now, going to, all right, I'm going to connect to 100 per week might raise a few alarm bells because LinkedIn will go, what the hell's happened to you? So start small. Maybe you start by going, I'm going to connect with 5 people per day. Then you might jump up to 10 people. If you did that over a year, you'd have a couple of thousand ICPs in your network quite comfortably. A couple of thousand in your network. And then eventually you'll end up at 20 per day. Now, there's something else I need to tell you here that's really important, why you need to grow your network this way. And in my workshops, when I'm speaking at events, I show this slide of a post. And if you want to message me, I'll send it to you. And it's basically a guy who's inadvertently posted, or somebody who's inadvertently posted to announce the death of somebody. I found it funny, but it is a bit dark. Dark humor. Of these people, they'll be constantly changing jobs, changing roles. So in B2B, for an example, roughly about 50% of the B2B jobs market turns over every 18 months. So if you think about your existing LinkedIn network, about half of that has probably changed jobs whilst they've been connected with you. Yeah. And if you've had your LinkedIn for a very, very long time, you could have like people in completely different industries, people who've retired, people who've died, all sorts of things are going on. So the reason why we do this is we keep fresh. We keep our network fresh with relevant people. This is good for the algorithm too, in terms of your content and getting engagement from the right people. So we want to be doing that. So we've got a network of buyers around us, the people who fit our best fit prospects. That's number one. Now, that just means we've got them. It doesn't mean they're customers. It doesn't mean they're a lead yet. We just got them, right? So that's foundational. If we don't do that, forget the rest, right? Because you're basically saying you're going to sell to people who already know you. And if you can go do that, great, right? But my guess is you would have already done that by now. Now, the second part of this second part, which is on your screen, is capture interest and intent. Now, interest and intent are 2 different things. Interest does not necessarily mean they're going to buy, but intent means they are motivated to take action in some way. So intent and interest are different, but sometimes we'll capture both. So when I do events like this, I will capture and people will sign up who really want to build pipeline and some people who are just curious, and that's okay. They're early in their buying journey, and that means they're way early. That's fine. Some people might join this today and have never seen me before, right? I can't predict that they're gonna be in my pipeline tomorrow or that I'm gonna do such a good job they make an inquiry, but I've gotta capture that intent. I'm gonna show you a screen for a moment because a lot of people, this is where the mistake and the myth that they have, and they think it's content or outreach. They think it's one or the other. Now, some people will say, "Well, it's a bit of both." But, actually, when I say people it's a bit of both, they actually don't know how to apply that. When they say, "Oh, well, I'm posting content, how do I get" so they automatically think what that means is I have to message the people who engage with my content. And if I'm honest, the majority of people, if I said to them, "Go and outreach to the prospects, the people who engage with your content," they would say, "I get hardly any engagement." That's the majority of the people on the platform. And when I do get engagement, they're the wrong people. We can fix that, by the way, but that might be your reality right now. So if I said to you right now, anybody who engages with your content, go and outreach to them, you go, Deborah Dean, exactly what I just said. So what are our routes? Well, we could just hit people up, just go and hit these people up that we've added here, but that's a bit icky and it doesn't actually work. So the stat used to be 0.6% response rate, just hitting people up cold. That's probably got worse now because of the volume people are being bombarded with. So we could just say, well, hit people up and just do this, but I know that doesn't work. We could also say, let's post great content and we'll get all the leads that we come. And there's loads of influencers on LinkedIn who'll tell you that works, which is bollocks, by the way. Sorry, it doesn't work because you can't market your way to a sale. You cannot market your way to a sale. And if you could, it would be very flipping expensive. There is a reason companies with billion-dollar marketing budgets have salespeople. Yeah, it's not because the salespeople are order takers. I can tell you that now. Now, order taking is a derogatory term that is used in sales industry to say you're not very good at selling. Actually, Pete, you're just closing what would have closed. So, content, if content worked, most of the big companies would not hire salespeople because salespeople are expensive. So there is somewhere in this, it's not post and it'll all come to you, and it's not pitch people and it'll all come to you. This is like a very extreme version of the way the world's working right now, but it's far more nuanced than that. People need to build trust and people need to build relevance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you and explain to you, just going to share a slide that will help with this, how you can approach that. Let me just share this window. So here it is. You see that okay, hopefully? Yeah, there it is. So there's 5 pathways to pipeline, and they're on screen here. And this is how you can capture the interest and intent. Now, when you're thinking about content or outreach, doesn't matter what you're thinking about there's something very important. How you position what you do really does matter. By that, I mean the message, the core message, i.e. if you're sending DMs, if you're posting content, if you're showing up on the platform, your positioning matters. Because look, I can fire out a ton of messages and I can get 0 response. I can post a ton of content and get nothing. So the act of sending messages, the act of posting content itself will not get us leads unless the message is dialed in. That's for another session here today. I'm not going to cover that today because we talked a little bit about that last week. The message matters. That determines what you post, what you say in outreach, what you do, titles, blogs, everything. The positioning of what you're doing and how you present what you're going to do matters. So the pathways to pipeline are about capturing interest and intent. And that's about the message. But there are 5 ways you can do this predictably. Now, if you go on LinkedIn and just start pitching people, the numbers you will have to send, the volume you will have to send, right? Remember these connections. The safe limit that, you could argue there's a higher limit, but the safe limit of growing your network is 100 connections per week. That's safe. Once you push beyond that, it's a bit more questionable, right? If you need zero point 0.6, do the maths with me here for a minute. Maybe we'll do it, right? If you need 0.6, 0.6 is the current response rate. Yeah. And let's be generous and say it's 0.6 for a meeting booking, right? 0.6 for a meeting booking. So if you send roughly 200 messages, you'll get a meeting booked. That is a fair number to be, lots of people will promote higher numbers, but that's over optimistic. Somebody said they get a 40% response rate to cold outreach. There's only one way you do that, right? But if we're going cold, we're just pummeling messages out, right? 0.6, I can't do the maths properly. 200 would get you one meeting, right? But your connection limit is 100. You see the problem? Maybe not straight away, but within a few months, you're not going to be able to sustain this. It's unsustainable. It doesn't work. Yeah. Coupled with that, so you'd have to send 200 messages to get one meeting. So that means basically 4 meetings is 800 messages. 800. That's the current stats. And we're being generous by saying 0.6 equals a meeting, right? But then for that meeting, some won't show up, some will reschedule, some will be pointless, all of that stuff. So actually, you get a big fat nothing. Big fat nothing, right? So that's the logic. That's the numbers. So these pathways that I'm showing you here are about building something better than that. Now, sales and marketing, just to be clear, are the only industries where a 95% failure rate ain't bad. Now, you have to understand, if you were in architecture and 95% of your buildings fell down, you'd be in jail. We are in marketing and sales is a rejection heavy, failure heavy industry. It's tough. That's why self-discipline really does matter. That's why self-discipline, if you operate in marketing and sales and you are led by your emotions, you will fail. This is not emotional. It's because people buy emotionally, but you cannot sell and market yourself emotionally because you will do things and say things that are wrong, that feel good, that are your opinions, but don't necessarily help you convert. So these pathways with the positioning actually help you build that pipeline. So the first one is emails and newsletters. Now, you've heard me talk about LinkedIn newsletters. Most people don't realize about newsletters. You've probably heard me talk about how incredible they are for growth of company pages and building that inner circle and that authority positioning. But as somebody subscribes to your newsletter, as you can see on screen, why are you not chatting with them? Yeah. Long form content and starting a conversation, not pitching them, start a conversation. I made a terrible mistake when I started my newsletter. of not looking who had subscribed. And I gained about 9,000 subscribers to my newsletter in the first week. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. But I should have looked at who the people were. Now I have to scroll because I got 30 odd thousand. I'd have to scroll. Why are you not chatting to those people? Not pitching, having a conversation. What do I say, Dean? You have to unlock your positioning. And I use a framework called Signal for that, which I teach my clients how to do. So it helps them construct their content, their messaging, their profile, all of that stuff. But newsletter, people sign up. If you grow your network and launch a LinkedIn newsletter, you'll get 2 to 3 signups to your newsletter every single day. Every day. That's conversations that could be had. Number one. Number two, conversion content. Now, sure, we have to post that stuff that gets reach and visibility, what we call attract and nurture content. Attract builds visibility, nurture builds trust and confidence. Conversion content drives leads and helps you start conversations. Things like LinkedIn polls, things like wow posts, all of these are conversion types of content, and they will literally give you the ability to start conversations with people. I do some polls that get me 15, 20 conversations. It took me 10 minutes to put the poll together. 15 to 20 conversations, and I could be doing that every week, right? Those people go into the pipeline, Events and webinars. I do these every week. Every single week, I do these. Giving value, educating, building trust. Some people are just interested, and some people are going, Dean, we need to solve a pipeline problem. How can you help us? And I'll have some conversations, not hundreds of conversations. The vast majority of people watching me today, well, on YouTube and everybody, will just be interested. And that's okay. That's okay, because they are early. And some of those will be clients later. But some of those people will go into my pipeline. Some will go into my pipeline. So if I do one of these a week, yeah, probably too many, but most people could do one of these a month and get a couple of hundred people signed up. A couple of hundred people signed up. If your positioning's right in terms of title and message and what you're talking about, you will capture a higher percentage of people with intent. If I talked about, I don't know, optimizing your LinkedIn profile, some people will come, but there's no intent. But building a pipeline tells, if you show up to this, this tells me you're serious about building pipeline. So I can see who's signed up and start conversations. Yeah. So events like this are a killer for me. They're great for companies where they've got a complex sell, and they're great for building trust. And you get people at all stages of the buying journey at these. So again, this is content in one sense, but with a deliberate goal to start conversations. Not millions of conversations. I'm not going to get 400 conversations from everybody who signed up, but some good quality conversations will come out of it. So I do it over and over and over and over and over. I don't stop doing what I'm doing when I have a good month. Even when I'm really busy and pushed to the max and think, I keep it going. Some things you sometimes drop. I sometimes drop on my newsletter, which is, bad, but I do these every week, like religiously. And the great thing is that you get into a routine, you get used to it. The first time I did one of these, I had 3 gins before I did it because I was terrified. But then I saw how it contributes to pipeline. And I'll give you a little story about this just to illustrate something. A few years ago, because we get so many people come to this, it creates a tracking problem in terms of who's been to what and what have you. And it's quite a big job to keep on top of, especially when you're doing it every week. And when we first started, we didn't have the systems in place to track it well. And so we couldn't track the conversion from our events. We couldn't track how well these do. And then we decided for a few weeks, was it a few weeks? About 6, 7 weeks, we'll stop them. So we stopped them for 6, 7 weeks. And about 2 months down the line from stopping, so just kind of coming up to this 7, 8 weeks time, we had our worst month ever. Horrific work. We lost money, and we tracked it back and realized that two, on average, people come to two before they make an inquiry. Two. And then we started to track and look backwards, and we found that roughly speaking, you can never quite work it out exactly, but roughly speaking, an hour of my time doing this makes me £12,000. It's insane. But I did not connect it all together. I didn't have the tracking. £12,000 an hour. That's insane. But we cut it because we did not realize that that was the case. Now, what we haven't talked about here is the secondary benefits, the brand building and all that kind of stuff. But roughly speaking, back 2022, whenever it was, I was making 12 grand an hour and I was doing it weekly. It's probably even more than that. I haven't checked the stats lately, but that's the reality of events. So events work good in cybersecurity and financial services, coaching, business consulting, anywhere where you've got something where it requires big change, big decisions, and there's a degree of complexity. It really, really works. Now, relationship-led selling, if you're more of a farmer as a salesperson, you're not the natural, hunter killer, but you are really good at building relationships. This relationship-led selling is really good for you. All of these things you can do in a couple of hours a week. They're not full-time jobs here. None of this is full-time. Yeah. I'm not doing this in, spending hours and hours and hours sat on LinkedIn to do this. I just come on for an hour, prepare my slides, but most of this stuff is kind of derived from the work I do with my clients anyway. So it's not like I have to invent something. I'm just talking about stuff that I'd already talk about. So it's not rocket science. So I do newsletter. Yeah. So the newsletter, I do the content that converts, I do the events and webinars, and I do the hyper targeted prospecting. And I've got a business to run. Yeah. But I've always said I have to have a sales target. As a business owner, to lead by example, I have a sales target. So I hit my sales target. So this is what I'm saying here. This relationship-led selling is about deliberately building a plan to build relationships. I've got what we call a social selling canvas. If you want a copy, just drop me a message and I'll send you a copy of the canvas. Because what the canvas does is allows you to plan how you will build relationships. And on the back are a whole load of tips about how to build it. So the idea behind these paths to pipeline is you do at least one of these would be enough for most people. One of them over and over and over and over. Not lots of new shiny objects. You do one thing really well. And that's took me from a 12K a month business to nearly a 200,000 a month business. Yeah. And we're shooting to get to 250,000 a month this year. That's where we want to get to. So 3 million. So fingers crossed, we keep repeating what we're doing, we're going to get there. So relationship selling, strategically building relationships on the platform with the right people. That's not going to be just commenting on posts, because the vast majority of your prospects don't post. It's about strategically developing those relationships and what we call multi-threading, using LinkedIn along with email and other activities to break the ice, build relationship, and unlock a conversation. We trained some sales teams at Salesforce to do this. They got 3 times the response rate from doing it. So it's not this soft, I'll comment on 50 people's posts every day. That's content creator bubble work. The vast majority of your prospects aren't posting. They're scrolling, they've got the app on their phones, but they don't use it like creators do. They use it in a very different way. And you've got to understand how to weave all that together. And then one of my favorites, events and hyper-targeted, my favorite, is hyper-targeted prospecting. We live in an age right now where literally right now, people are distracted. We can spot fake personalization. We can spot AI message. We're being bombarded with irrelevant outreach. I got an email today as a health tech leader inviting me to speak at an event. As a health tech leader, I know nothing about health tech, right? But low quality outreach is everywhere. And so our prospects have switched off. And so the advantage is now in doing something that nobody else will do. The relationship based is multi-threading and doing lots of activity to build that relationship and unlock a conversation through relationship. This one's about relevance. So being hyper focused on them, understanding their business, and sending something that is obvious that you've done your homework. And I can show you again, if you're curious about how this works, message me on LinkedIn and I'll send you one. I'll do one to you so you can see, that's how he does it. So hyper targeted prospecting is very good. Curtis on my team, if you hunt down Curtis on LinkedIn, he does 7 of these a day and books 2 calls. Can you do 7 messages a day? Can you spend half an hour sending 7 very well thought out messages per day? Most people can say yes to that, right? If you can do that, you can book. Let's say you're not as good as it as Curtis, because he has got 6 years of practice. But let's say you can do 10 and get 1, 10 and get 1, 20 and get 1. Say you're really terrible, 20 and get 1. Yeah, Curtis is doing 7 and getting 2. So you could do 10 and get 1, I'm pretty sure. So this is a really powerful way to engage people. A meeting a day will fill your pipeline. 1 prospect agreeing to a call each day will fill your pipeline. But one of my team on our campaigns team is actually working with a cloud company, and they've booked 15 meetings with their ABM accounts in 2 months. All of these accounts are worth multi-million-dollar sums. Now, they're in the pipeline, so they're not guaranteed, but they're in the pipeline. So guess what? We're doing another campaign, and another campaign, and another campaign. So these are your pipelines. Now, that's the convert interest to calls. So that is the bit that most people complain to me and go, Dean, I don't know how, I'm not getting any conversations. Dean, I'm not getting any leads. That's the bit that most people struggle with. Yeah. That's the bit that people capture interest and intent. Now that you've got the interest, here's the hardest bit. Getting them on a call. Getting them on a call. This is the hardest bit. And a lot of people mess this up because, and this is very, very important, no sale happens without the call. Each stage builds on the other. So the call is so important. And then we'll talk about the next one. How do you get them on a call? Your outreach that you do, let's say you've got a new subscriber to your newsletter. You got a new subscriber to your newsletter. You're going to send them a message, right? They are not going to come on a call because, hey, do you fancy a conversation? They're not coming for that. Hey, I've got a great service that will help you. They're not going to come to be sold. No prospect comes to a call to be sold to. They come to find out if you have a solution to their problem. Yeah. Or an outcome they want. Again, this is messaging, this is positioning, this is all this stuff. Outcome they want or a solution to their problem. They do not care about this. They do not care about you telling them how wonderful your solution is. They want to know, they're curious about you understand their problem and you might have an outcome, a result that they want. One of my best messages is asking people if they're looking and interested in getting more leads and doing it themselves in 30 minutes. One of my best responses is that. And then they say yes or no. and then I can invite them to a call. So your ability to get people on a call, whether it be the webinars, the newsletters, hyper-targeted outreach, has nothing to do with your solution and everything to do with a problem they might have and an outcome or end result that they want. If you lose sight of that, you will never get them on a call. What most people do, or many people who struggle to sell on LinkedIn, is they blab. They get somebody and they just vomit, "Hey, I do this." Nobody cares what you do. They don't care. They care about this and this. And you are just a means to an end. I know I'm being brutal, but you're just a means to an end. They value you, they value your solution when they start to see and believe that your solution will get them from problem to outcome. But initially, your leads, your prospective clients only care about problem and outcome. Everything else is irrelevant. And what I see is many people, they get an inquiry and they forget this. They get somebody signing up for something, totally forget it, and just blab. I do this. Oh, okay, great. I'm, I'm not going to give you half an hour because you do that. Tell me how you're going to help me. Tell me how my life will be different. Make me curious to want to know a little bit more. So to get calls, whatever you send and however you communicate has to be anchored in these two things. If it isn't, they're gone. You've just wasted a lead. This is skill. This is training. This is something you have to learn. Don't say, oh, I can outsource it. You can't outsource something you don't understand because you'll hire the wrong people. If you can't do this, you can't outsource it. Outsourcing it is not the answer until you understand this. Which problem, because you can help with many, which problem, which outcome will trigger it. Otherwise, you will pay somebody else to figure that out. You will pay somebody else to figure that out. I always say, when it comes to sales and marketing, get something working yourself so you understand how it works, what converts, what doesn't. And then if you want to scale, outsource. Do not outsource because you can't fix it. You have to learn it before you can outsource it. They should help you scale. They shouldn't be substitute for you not understanding your own customer. I know I'm being brutal, but it's the truth. It should not substitute you understanding your own customer. So these are intrinsically, well, these are critical in your outreach follow-up. If you're not using them in any kind of outreach, you will get zero responses. Nobody buys just because you've said this is what you do. So that is the biggie. The next one, let me just stop sharing for a moment. The next one we're going to look at, and I'm just going to make sure my AI camera doesn't go wild. The next one we're going to look at is convert calls to clients. So we've got the calls. Yeah, we've got the calls in our diary. They've booked, they've agreed to come. Again, if you get a lot of no-shows on your calls, you need to make sure they understand and they appreciate the reason why that call is important. You know, one of the best things I did was renamed my call. I renamed my call because think about it. If a prospect's in the diary and they're overwhelmed with work, because we're all far too busy, we all work more than we should. But if a prospect's in the diary and they're going, oh my God, I'm drowning here, I've got paperwork to do, and they see Dean and Steve, oh, I can budge that. It's only a sales call, I'll budge it. But if that call says, this is how Steve's going to build $1 million pipeline, if that's an outcome they want, or if that's a problem they've got, solving the pipeline or filling Steve's pipeline, guess what? They're not going to budge it. They're not going to move it. They're not going to. So think about what could you do, first of all, to improve your show up. Yeah. In other words, remind people why. Yeah. No. Hey, Dean, looking forward to telling you about my products and services. I'm definitely not coming now. Hey, Dean, looking forward to speaking to you about how we can fill your pipeline and some of the quick wins you could be doing. I've already had a look at your company page, looked at your profile, really think there's some easy wins here. So I'll explain all on the call. See you then. I'm not missing that call. Remind people why on the calls. Yeah. I have to check my time here. I'm going berserk. Next one on the call, discovery. Yeah. Or maybe I'll do some more about this. Understanding their position, getting to know what their goals and challenges are, understanding what they've tried and failed before, so that when you write the proposal, yeah, you don't just send a quote. Do not just send a quote. Do not. Hey, this is how I can help you. I'll give you 3 strategy sessions, 3 this, 3. Use what you've learned in discovery to say, so this is where you are, this is what you want, this is what you want to achieve. Here's how I can help you get there. So your proposal is also a reminder of why this all matters. So make sure you don't send a quote, but your proposal reminds them why. Because after the call, they might go on a call with you very, very excited. I'm gonna have to shut up in a minute because I've got my own call at 3, sales call at 3. Um, you have to remind them why this proposal is important. If you just say, "I'll do this, 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 and here's an amount," the enthusiasm of the call will be forgotten in a few days, and now they're looking at your quote and going, "Mm, mm." But if you remind them of what they said their problem was, what they tried before, what challenges they face solving it themselves, what they feel that the issues might be if they don't solve it, and your recommended way of solving it, and how your service would do it, and the price, you're going to keep that momentum moving. It won't stall. I'm not saying the deal will die if you just send them a quote like just information, but it may take longer. So there's a whole host of skills here and things in this process that you have to appreciate. It's not just a case of I get leads and I go on calls and I convert them. You have to keep the momentum moving. Otherwise, you remember that pipeline stat I showed you earlier where we diagrammed it out? My AI tracking's doing my head in. You remember when I said you like pipeline and I said, right, percentage, nowhere, go nowhere. A percentage will be dead. Percentage will be 0 to 30 days. A percentage will be 30 to 90, and a percentage will be 90 plus. Yeah, you remember when I said that? So if you're not good at basically, let's say I show you how to get leads on LinkedIn. Now I'll help you with the whole process. So if you're feeling like I'm rubbish at sales, we'll help you with the whole process. My Elite Accelerator, our social selling pipeline for sales teams, we help you get good at the whole process. It's a learning journey, but we get good at it. So the LinkedIn bit is the first 2. The LinkedIn bit is the first 2 of these 4. The second 2 are actually basic sales skills that everybody needs. Whether you're a business owner, a salesperson, you need them. Otherwise, what happens is more of your leads will go here to dead. So for every lead you get, or every 100 leads, you might get 40, 50% going there. If you don't get this bit that I've been talking about, this whole outcome and problem. You might get a few here, but it might be 10%, but you've lost 40% of your leads, right? And then you go, well, hang on a minute, 20% are here and 30% are here, right? So if you get the second half of this wrong, more of them will die and more of them will go into the long grass because they'll take time to make a decision because they're not sure. If your proposal does not give them confidence because you're making it like a quote, you will lose momentum and that deal will take longer to go over the line. So there's 2 risks of not being good at the second half. Risk number 1 is you kill deals that would have closed. You kill them. Second thing is you slow the deals down so they go into the long grass and they take longer to convert because they've not seen the value clearly. And post call, excitement happened on the call and it's fizzled out. And so they'll have to go round and round in circles again before they come back to it. This is why it's important. So can I help you get leads on LinkedIn? Yes, 100%. But that only works to build your pipeline if the other foundations are in place. If they're not in place, and I've seen salespeople who are not very good at this, by the way, if they're not in place, you will kill all the opportunity you create. So how do you build a pipeline on LinkedIn? Number one, start growing your network. To start small, five people a day. Number two, one of the 5 paths. Yeah, I'm gonna actually, I'll share my screen because I've got a little quiz you can do that'll help you. So, number 2, pick a pathway to pipeline because without that, uh, you are done for. So, number 2, build a pathway to pipeline. So that's capture interest and intent, and I showed you 5. Then number 3, you've got to get good at using problem and outcome to get people onto calls. Well, in follow-ups, in messaging, in your hyper-targeted process prospecting, you've got to get people onto those calls. So that's a skill in itself that we'll teach you. I can teach you if you want. Then we've got to convert them, and that's about keeping momentum by using the discovery. If you didn't do the call well and the discovery wasn't right, if you don't do the proposal right, if you don't do your follow-ups right, the deal will lose momentum. And then what happens is you will kill leads you create or kick them into the long grass. And so what will happen is you'll go, this LinkedIn thing doesn't work, because you'll get leads that just ghost you, leads that don't convert, leads that go nowhere. It's the whole process to building pipeline. So hopefully this has been useful for you today. On screen is a QR code. If you scan that QR code, it will take you through a quiz that will help you pick out which of those pathways that I showed you earlier, the 5 different ones, newsletters, events, all that kind of stuff. It will take you through a quiz that will help you find which is the one that you can do day in, day out, which fills that first part of the stage. You're growing your network, capturing the interest and intent, which feeds the rest of the pipeline. Yeah. So if you think about it, it's like a snowball. Yeah. It starts with growing your network and having the right people in your network. Then it rolls to a pathway, capturing interest and intent. Then it rolls to converting the interest and intent onto a call. And then it goes to converting those calls into clients. 4 separate processes, but they compound on each other. The growing your network's the easy bit. Anybody can do that. The next bit is the pathway. You've got to have a pathway. That's what the quiz is here that you can scan on the QR code. And then the skill set, and it's anybody can do it. It's a structure. It's a process. It's not scary. You don't have to hard pitch people. If you do it right, there's no pitching. You don't have to pitch anything. A good sales call, a good follow-up, a good whole sales process should feel like a doctor consulting a patient. That's how I was taught sales. Consultative selling. I know selling's an icky word, but it is a doctor helping a patient. That's all it is. And if you reframe the way you do it, discovery, reminders, all of that stuff is doctor and patient. Reframe how you think, and you start to go, this selling thing's not as scary as it sounds. I'm just positioning myself like a lawyer would. Lawyers hate selling, but they do all right of it. Doctor, patient, consultative sell. Right, I've got to sign off. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you like this new little setup. I've dusted the cobwebs off the studio. Check out the QR code. If anything I've said resonated here and you think, I'd love to find out how you can help me put this in place, Dean, drop me a DM. You don't have to put a long waffle. Just put the word win in there. I'll reach out. We'll set up a call to chat and see where it goes from there. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great weekend, and I will see you